Kadosh, good morning. I hope all is well. I wanted to share with you an incredible idea, which also has to do with Pirke Avot, even though it was 2 weeks ago. The chapter has to do with this week's Parashat, Kedoshim, and it has to do with Rabbi Akiva. We know that the students of Rabbi Akiva passed away, the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva, and they stopped passing away, whether it's Lag BaOmer, Lad BaOmer, which is going to be this coming Friday, Bezrat Hashem, next week. And we have to learn from Rabbi Akiva. There's something very important that we can learn from Rabbi Akiva. So I'm going to bring you down an incredible Gemara Mesechet Shabbat. The Gemara in Mesechet Shabbat says, Kuf Kav Zayin Amubet 127b. Tanu Rabbanan, there was a story. The rabbis taught, Hadan Chavero lechav zechut, aninoto lechav zechut. If you judge your friend favorably, you will be judged favorably. And the Gemara says a story, relates a story. Listen to the story. Maaseh be'adam echad, there was a story of a person, Shiarad miGalil Elyon, Niskar etzel bal habayit echad badarom. So he went from the Galil in the north, he went to the south, and he started working. He didn't work for a week, a month, a year, shalosh shanim, 3 years he was working. Now, it's not like nowadays that you get a salary, whether it's once a month, right? The fortnight, every 2 weeks. No. At the end of the 3 years, he was going to collect his salary. So until now, he did not collect 1 penny. Yeah, nothing. And he's waiting to collect. Fine. Erev HaRegel, he comes and he tells his balabait, he tells his boss, tell me sechari, velech vazonat ishti ubanai. Says, listen, I've been working for you for 3 years. Give me my salary, and I'm going to go and I'm going to give to my wife and children. Parnasa. Right? Remember, sometimes they would travel for months and years and come back, and that's how they would be able to pay up. Fine? Amarlo, eli maot, I have no money. Okay? Amarlo, teli perot, give me fruits. Amarlo, eli, I have no fruits. Right? He tells him, teli karka, give me land. El, I don't have. Teli bema, give me animals. I don't have. Teli karim ksato, pillows, don't have. Nothing. He's got nothing. Now, 1 second. Yeah, the guy's watching. He sees everything that he had. It's not like all of a sudden the guy became bankrupt and he sees that at the beginning he had a huge mansion, a big office, and then all of a sudden, little by little, it started. No. He sees everything in front of him. Yeah, but he just went, took his bag, and he left. He had nothing to show, nothing whatsoever. Now, if we would stop right here before saying what's going on, right? What would we do in such a case? Yeah, how would we react? How would you react? Imagine you've been working for 3 years. Working. All of a sudden, you ask for your salary. The guy's got nothing. You're looking around, well, he's got nothing. What does it mean? How would we react? Yeah? Fine. You know, it's food for thought. You know how many people would start going crazy, screaming, I don't understand you. You knew that you took me as your worker. Now you didn't pay me. Well, you didn't think about it in the beginning. They didn't say anything. Fine. Lachar regel, after the Chag, yeah, but this was Erev HaRegel, right before the Chag. After the Chag, comes the balabait, he takes the money with him, and he takes 3 donkeys full of food, one of drinks, one of different delicacies. And he goes to the house. So they eat and drink, and then he gives him the money. Amarlo, and he tells him, listen carefully, he tells him, what do you think? You asked me for money, and I told you I have no money. What did you think? So this person, the worker, he says, listen, Amarti Shema Frakmatya Bezolni. I thought maybe you had a good business deal. And you took all your cash and you invested it. You had no cash. Sometimes it happens. People, they don't have it. The Gemara says that it's always good to have a third of your money in, in we're going to call it real estate, a third of your money in cash. But this guy went, invested everything, all the cash, invested. So he had nothing. Fine. So he calls and tells him, 1 second, when you asked me for animals, yeah, and I told you I had no animals. What did you think? So he said, listen, I thought maybe you went and you rented all your animals out. So you had no animals right then and there. Okay, what about the land? You know I own my land. I own my business, my this, my that. I own what I said I don't have. What did you think? He said, no, I thought maybe it was muhkeret biyad acherim. You went, you rented it out, you leased it out to other people. What about fruits? He says, no, maybe you didn't take off maaser. You could see the fruits on the tree. You didn't take off maaser. Fine. What about karim ksatot? He says, afterwards I thought, you know what, maybe you went and you consecrated all your property to the Shemaim, to the Bet HaMikdash. You went and you consecrated everything. Once upon a time, they would actually do that. They would come and they would say, everything that they have goes to Ekdesh, goes to Hashem. Yeah? Nowadays, people don't do that. Yeah? But once upon a time, it used to happen. Nowadays, there's like a goodwill type of a thing that they make a pledge that during their lifetime, they promise to give, or they pledge to give the majority of their wealth to tzedakah. The goyim have that. They get like a big medal and a big thing that these guys are, so you have a whole bunch of people that's what they do, right? But even by that, here, they would be magdish everything. So what happened? He went and he said, Amar lo ha'avodah. He swore. That's exactly what happened. Hidarti kol nechasai. He made a neder on all his property in order that his child should be able to learn Torah. And when I went to my friends in the south, they permitted me the neder, and therefore by permitting me the neder, I was able to get everything back, and I'm giving it to you. So he says, Keshem shedantani lezechut, kacha makom yadun otcha lechazechut. Just like you judge me favorably, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu should judge you favorably. Now, who is the worker? So we once mentioned this a few years ago. This worker was Rabbi Akiva before he became Rabbi Akiva. Meaning Rabbi Akiva, when he was still in a Ma'aretz, he knew nothing. And what happened is that he was rented out to Rabbi Eliezer ben Rukonos. And in order that he should, right, to be done lechav zechut. So imagine what's going on over here. You understand? Imagine what's going on. Yeah? What do you guys... So what he comes and he says is that this is based upon Pirke Avot Perek Rishon. The first chapter of Pirke Avot says, "Va'avedan et kol ha'adam lechav zechut." You have to judge every single human being favorably. Now here, Rabbi Akiva was teaching us a lesson. And this is even before he became the Rabbi Akiva that we know. He's telling us, learn how to judge every Jew favorably. And we actually see it in this week's Parashat. In this week's Parashat, we say, Betzedek tishpot et amitecha. You have to judge favorably, and you have to judge in the right way every single Jew, which is a mitzvah deoraita to learn zechut. That's brought down in the Chinuch, the Rambam, Rabbeinu Yonah, the Samak. And it's even more. On the pasuk of ve'edecha lo yanem benefesh lamut, which means that you're not allowed to testify with one witness to come to testify the negative. The Rambam says that somebody that has a negative commandment, right, lechova, which is for the negative, don't make maskanot. Don't make a maskana. You're one witness. One witness cannot do anything. So don't testify. And it's a negative commandment to testify. Why? Because there's a one man that you cannot do anything. So you can't do anything. That's it. What are you going to do? You're going to go to Bedin. You could come and you could warn and you could do, but you cannot do anything. So therefore you have to be careful. And says the Chavetz Chaim, this mitzvah ladul lechav zechut is part of the mitzvah ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, which is also in this week's parasha. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and says Rabbi Akiva and the Yerushalmi in the Dadim, ze klal gadol b'Torah. This is the most important general rule of the Torah. Everything is just the basics. The main thing is v'aftarach kamocha. Everything else is just explanations. Everything else is just to add up to it, to use it, to explain what it is v'aftarach kamocha. And therefore, it's so important, this concept. Do you know, if we would actually appreciate every single Jew, it would be so easy to do this. Imagine somebody comes and tells you about your father, your mother, your brother, that they did something, and it looks terrible. What would you do right away? You would try to answer them up. And even if sometimes it doesn't even make sense what you're going to try to answer, you would still say it. And you would try to find out what's the reason and what's going on. And it's to understand what's happening. Yeah? So what happens is that Kam Chachamim, and they say a beautiful mashal, Rav Dov Yafe, one of the mashkichim of nowadays, one of the biggest mashkichim of nowadays. He came and he said like this: imagine right now you have a jewel, a diamond. You have a diamond ring and the diamond fell out, or you don't know where you put the diamond ring. What are you going to do? At the beginning, you're going to look in a normal place where it's probably going to be found. So you would check whether it's the cupboards, whether it's in the washrooms, or you didn't tilat yadayim. You're going to check all these different places to find out, right, where's the diamond ring? Where's the ring, the jewels? If you still can't find it, what are you going to do? You're going to look in a place where you don't think it is. But you're still going to look. Why are you going to look in a place where you don't know where it is? Because maybe it's also there. You don't know. Then what's going to happen later? You're going to go again and look again in a place where you already found it. Right? In a place where you think that you might be able to find it. Now the question is, you already checked there. Right? I already checked my room. I checked the washroom. All of a sudden now I'm going to start checking the laundry room, right? The dining room, some drawers, my car. But afterwards, again, you're going to check the room. You're going to check the closets, the safe, the this. Why are you going to check again? Doesn't make sense. But what? Because at the beginning, since it's so important, it's so precious to you, you're going to look in a place where it's most probably going to be there. If you still can't find it, you're going to look for a place where it's not going to be there. Do you know where we saw this? In the Torah. Re'ayah from the Torah. Proof from the Torah. You guys learn Bible, no? Yeah? From the Torah. Where do you have it in the Torah? Lavan. Lavan Arasha is looking for his idols. Who took them? Rachel. What did Rachel do? She put it underneath herself. On the donkey, underneath herself. But she had her tent. Comes Lavan, and it says in the Torah, he went into Yaakov. He didn't find it. He went into the tent of Leah, the maidservants, didn't find it. Where did he go again? Back to the oil Yaakov. Where was the oil Yaakov? Where was the tent of Yaakov? By Rachel. But 1 second, he already went there. Why did he go again? So Rashi there says, because he already knew that Rachel was always touching things. Meaning that was her nature. So he thought she probably took it. But the concept that you see is, this is so. So you're not only going to look for it in the place where it is. You're going to look in a place where it probably is. Then you're going to look for a place where you probably didn't put it there. And then again, you're going to look for it again. Why? Because it's important to you. So say Chachamim, the exact same thing what happens with our brothers. The same thing happens with our friends. If you see someone doing something wrong, at the beginning, you have to try to justify them in a way where it's most probable, where it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, you're going to probably start trying to justify them in a way that maybe it doesn't even make sense that much, but you're going to still do it. But even after that, you're going to try again. And that's what you would do if it was your father, or it was your mother, or it was your brother. So if you love every single Jew like you love yourself, so then you would do the same thing. You would also try to look in the good in them. You wouldn't automatically come and look in the negative. So Rav Pinkus comes and he brings a beautiful Rav Yisrael Salanter. Remember, Rav Yisrael Salanter was a father of the Musar movement, of learning ethics, learning how to become better people, self-examination, self-introspect. trying to become human beings, and he says something incredible. Ena kavana, it's not the intention, re'iyah sichlit, something logical, but rather re'iyah that comes from the regesh, sentimental feelings. Meaning sometimes you could see with your eyes, and sometimes you see with your heart. What does that mean exactly? Rav Pinku says, every single human being, we come and we look at ourselves in different ways. And sometimes the same way that I'm looking at you is not the same way that I'm looking at him. And he gives a beautiful mashal. Beautiful mashal. Listen to this parable to illustrate the point. He says, imagine right now you're in the Bet Knesset. Yeah, and all of a sudden you turn and you see someone there and he's like this and he's crying, he's saying Amidah, but he's saying it with all his fervor and all his concentration and everything. What's the first thing that you're going to do? You're going to say, Iowa, this is the way that you go in front of a king? What's going on over here? That's the way you pray? Right away, you look at it in a negative. But 1 second. Says Rav Pinkus, what happened yesterday? Yesterday, you had a sick person that was very, very close to you, and you were praying the exact same way. So what happened? Why is it that when you were doing it, because you had the sick person, and they were so close to you that you were crying and you were praying with all your fervor and you were doing everything, and that was okay. And all of a sudden, today, Baruch Hashem, everybody's healthy. And all of a sudden, you turn and you see your friend praying like that, and all of a sudden, that's the way you pray in front of the king? That's the way you do. What's he doing? Or you start looking at a negative light. Why are you looking at a negative light? You would have done the exact same thing. So therefore it comes, Rav Pinkus, and it says, why? Adam karov etzel atzmo. Because we're a family within each other. Meaning every single action that I do is always correct. But if you're going to do the exact same action, right, it will be something completely different. Somebody once, they said, do you know how what the concept behind the truth of the identity of a human being is? If they would take our video of how we act and put it in front of us, and nowadays, you know that they change the video, they change the faces nowadays, and you could change everything. So just change the face. Yeah, change the face on the video, right? And then afterwards, judge yourself, judge the video. Yeah? I think the majority of people will be shocked. The majority of people will be shocked. Mamash, take the video. Yeah, think about it. You're going through the day, put itself in the video in front of you, make the change of the face, and then afterwards, when the guy is going to come, right, that's what's going to happen. Yeah, why? Because it's going to have a completely different effect. It's something completely different. And says Rav Chaim Friedlander, Sifte Chaim, he comes and he says, the teva pashut, the natural instinct of a human being is that he changes it for his friends. Meaning, like we mentioned this, I think it was last week or a few weeks ago, that for ourselves, we always look at ourselves in a positive light. For our friends, we always look at them in the negative light. And it's supposed to be the exact opposite. How do we see the exact opposite? The Ramban, Nachmanides, in his letter, very important letter, it's very important to read it at least once a week, says the Ramban in his letters, V'chol adam yeh gadol mimecha be'enecha. Every single human being should be greater than you in your eyes. You should think in your eyes, in your heart, that you are more obligated and he has more merits than you. Because if it is that he is greater than you, then there's nothing to talk about. But even if it's not, maybe he's doing it accidentally because he doesn't know any better. But you know better, and you should be doing better. That's what the Ramban says. But for ourselves, we have to do self-introspect. We have to do the exact opposite. Look at ourselves as Resha'im. How do we see that? Gemara Mesechet Nida, Lamed Amud Bet. The Gemara says in 30b, he says like this, they make every single human being swear when they're coming out of the womb of their mothers. Afilu kol haolam kulo omrim lecha tzadik ata. Imagine you come, and every single person says that you're a tzaddik. Says the Gemara, they come and they make you swear. Heye be'enecha karasha. You should be in your own eyes like a rasha, like a wicked person. What does that mean? You know what that means? Because many times we pat ourselves on the back. We're the biggest tzaddikim in the world. But my friend beside me is the biggest rasha in the world. But 1 second. It could be that he does the exact same bad as you. No, but he's a rasha, you're a tzaddik. And it could be that he does much better than you. No, but I'm a tzaddik. And that's the problem. It's exact opposite. We have to switch the lens. You know, it's like the magnifying glass, or it's like the binoculars. Depends which way you're looking. So with the binoculars, what happens is I'm looking and I could see something that's very far or very near. So I come and I look at it in such a lens that all of a sudden I'm making it much greater. So the averot, my averot, I come and I look at it upside down. So I have no averot. My mitzvot, you know how many mitzvot I have? We're full of pomegranates. We've got millions of mitzvot. Yeah? But my friend, all of a sudden I switch a lens. All of a sudden from him, he doesn't do anything. This guy, when was the last time he did this and he did that? And even when he did it for this. He did it. He's not the, it's a show, it's a fake, but all the averot, ooh. Yeah, no, so if we would know all the averot that he would do, ooh, it's too heavy to carry. But why? And that's where the problem is. The Baal Shem Tov used to say something beautiful. The Baal Shem Tov used to say that why is it so important to be dan lechav zechut? Says, you know why it's so important to judge everyone favorably? He says, because at the end we're only judging ourselves. When Natan Navi came to David HaMelech, chapter 51 in Tehillim, he comes to David HaMelech and he tells David HaMelech a story. And David HaMelech is listening. And he's asking him, I want you to give me a psak. Listen to the story. Right? There's a poor person. He has one sheep. The rich neighbor, he's got so many sheep. The rich neighbor comes and he takes the poor person's sheep, slaughters it, this, that. What does David HaMelech do? Right away he jumps and he kills. The person that stole the sheep, the rich person, he's chayav mitah. He has to pay back 4 and 5 times. He went and did. What does Natan Navi say? By the way, you should know that person is you. That person is you. That's all that it is. Says the Baal Shem Tov, that's what's going to happen to us. So listen to this. Rabbi Rafael Baruch Toledano comes and he says beautifully. He says you should know. We always say, right, by Yosef HaTzadik. What happened by Yosef? Yosef comes and he gives musar to the brothers, and all of a sudden we say a famous expression. That expression is brought down everywhere. Oy lanu miyom adin, oy lanu miyom hatochecha. Woe to us on the day of judgment. Woe to us on the day of reproach. Says Chachamim. 1 second. Says Rabbi Rafael, what comes first? Reproach or judgment? First is reproach. Then comes judgment. I'm going to come, bring you all the proofs, bring you all the evidence, and then I'm going to judge you. Why does it say, woe to you on the day of judgment, and now I'm going to reproach you? First, I'm going to reproach you. Then I'm going to give you the judgment. They come, they bring all the evidence. They say, how could you have done such a thing? And then the judge and jury is going to go and judge you, right? Or HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come and judge you. What's going on? But rather, explains exactly what we just mentioned now. The exact opposite. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come and he's going to put our video in front of us. You guys thought it was amusing. We all thought it was a joke, but it's not. That is reality. Reality is that God will come after 120 and he's going to put us on a video. And he's going to come and he's going to alter the images. There's one difference. Nowadays, people that are very high tech and tech savvy, they know that you changed it. You didn't change it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he does it so professional, you'll never know. And what's going to happen? You're going to come and you're going to say, look at this guy. Rasha! Look what he's doing here. And look what he's doing over there. And look what... So he's going to say, what would you say on such a person? You're my jury, right? Let's come. What are we going to say? And all of a sudden, we're going to come and we're going to give a psak. We're going to give a din, a judge. We're going to give you a judgment. When we finish the judgment, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come and flip it on our face. And he's going to say, just 1 second now. Let's just replace. Let's replace the face. And all of a sudden, everything that you just said, now look what's happening. So says Rabbi Rafael Baruch Toledano, a person that in this world got accustomed to judging their friends favorably, he's got a lot of what to look up to in Shamayim. Because maybe when they're going to show him the video, he's going to say, listen, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this person, he did this, but maybe Be'emet he wanted to do something good. Maybe Be'emet this is what really happened. And then when they come and they flip the coin, and now it's on him, he's going to save his own skin. He's going to save himself. But if Chas v'Shalom, we were always the devil's advocate. We were always the one to put our friends down, always to look negative, in a negative light. What's going on? We're going to be in big trouble then. But then what's going to happen is it's not going to look good. And that's a very, very big problem. So now we're going to try to understand the Gemara. Why? How do we start off the shiur? We started off with the Gemara, Tanu Banan, and then we brought a story with Rabbi Akiva. And remember, Rabbi Akiva is the entire concept of Lag BaOmer, the students of Rabbi Akiva, the Sefirat HaOmer. He was the one in the story that he judged favorably his boss, that after working for 3 years, his boss sent him home empty-handed, and he didn't say anything. He accepted it. Whatever, that's it. This is Mina Shamayim. And he didn't say anything. Okay. But now asks Rav Chaim Shmulevitz. He comes and he asks the following question. Explain to me, what does that mean when the Gemara says, if you're going to judge your friend favorably, they're going to judge you favorably? I don't understand. If it's between two human beings, it makes sense. I'm going to come and say whether it's, Mauricio, Jimmy, Leon, Ari, right? Deborah, all these people. Very good. I'm judging you. It's vice versa. So I'm going to judge you favorably. You're going to judge me favorably. We're good friends. I'm always going to look in the positive. Even if it was something bad, maybe you had a bad day. You didn't really mean it. There was something there. Everything that you want. Beautiful. But here we're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How is HaKadosh Baruch Hu going to judge you favorably? It's either you did an action which was bad or an action which was good. What does that mean? Just like you judge favorably, so today you should judge you favorably. What are you talking about? So listen to what he says. He says in Kohelet, we say a pasuk, Ki en adam tzadik ba'aretz asher ya'aseh tov v'lo yechetah. There doesn't exist a person in this world that he's a tzaddik such a way that he never sins. So now he says, some people think that means that even the biggest tzaddikim, they sin. Right? Fine. But he says it's not true. He says, you know what we're talking about? He says, many times it can happen that the tzaddik, it doesn't mean that he's going to do an avirah. But it means sometimes that the tzaddik, sometimes he's going to do such an action where in the action itself, right, sometimes there's a negative aspect in the action and sometimes it's a positive. So for example, he went and he did an action. Part of his intention was for good, but part of the intention was not for the best. And that's the explanation. And Adam Tzaddik Bar is that it's impossible that we're 100% perfect. Nobody's perfect. Right? There's only one person that's perfect. He's not a person. He's Hashem. Okay. But then what does it mean then we're going to be done lechav zechut? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you always judge your friend favorably, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not pay attention to the negative part of the intention in the action. He brushes it off. Because since you judge favorably, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will judge you favorably. Which means, it's not talking about now that you did a negative action. You did a negative action, there's nothing what to judge favorably. We're talking about even in positive actions. When you come and you do a mitzvah, many times we do a mitzvah for a good intention, but part of the intention was also for the negative. If you judge your friend favorably, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come and he will also judge you favorably, which means that he won't pay attention to the negative part of the aspect, the negative intention. He will only take the good of the intention. And that's also brought down in the Chavetz Chaim and Shmirat HaLashon and the Shla Kadosh, the exact same Yesod as well. This is what they're bringing down. So continues Sichot Musar and he says, this is actually one of the best advices that you could give for Rosh Hashanah. Why? To have judgment on Rosh Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah, we're judged. So if I'm going to give you advice, what would be the best advice? You're asking me advice now. What would be the best advice? Right? Just like Rashi says in everything. That part of it is dan lechav zechut. Because when you're going to be dan lechav zechut, you're also going to bring more shalom between us. You're going to bring more peace between people. And that's why Rashi says in the Gemara, that's part of Havat Shalom. When you bring peace and harmony between people, it's when you judge favorably. How many times does it happen that because we didn't judge favorably and we judged negatively, all of a sudden, everything changed? The entire story changed. There was once a story in Bnei Brak that's brought down that there were neighbors. That what happened is that they went and they got into a fight with their neighbors and they didn't speak with them for 7 years. 7 years they didn't speak to them. What happened exactly? How does that happen that for 7 years they didn't speak to their neighbor? You know what happened? What happened is that this neighbor, he went and he saw the other neighbor buy milk, right? He had 3 bags of milk, 3 bottles of milk, and he was taking it home on Thursday night. Friday morning, early in the morning, even before the makolet is open, even before the supermarkets are open, he needed milk. Yeah, what happened was they go to knock on the neighbor's door, and they said that they didn't have any milk to give them. So they went and they got into such a fight that he said, how could the guy have the audacity to tell me such a thing? I really need the milk. How could it be? So they went, he started screaming at him, this and that. They stopped speaking for 7 years. After 7 years, and after sometimes even many years, you even forget why you're upset. Do you know that I once met a family, right, that they went and they said, this family, right, they're like second or third cousins. We don't even speak to them. I asked them, why don't you speak to them? No, because our grandparents got into a fight, so we don't even speak to them. Again, we're not talking about them. We're not talking about their parents. The grandparents got into a fight, and they were obviously brothers or cousins or whatever it is. So now you have down the line 3 generations, and they don't even speak to each other because the grandparents. I asked him, do you know why they got into a fight? He tells me the truth. We don't even know anymore. So I asked him, so why don't you speak to them again? My parents, they didn't speak to them. My grandparents, you understand? Sometimes it's a busha v'chirpa, it's an embarrassment for minagim, right? That our parents and everything done, whether it's the way that we pray, whether the way that how we act, that we could change. Well, we're in the 21st century. Well, we still have to be 100%, Moroccans. Hey, water it down a little bit. They do half a Yerushalmi, Meurav Yerushalmi. It's all mixture. You could be this, you could be that. But your parents were so strict on that. Yeah, but now we could be more lenient. You understand? Listen, we have to be open-minded. 21st century. 1 second. On that, you're open-minded. But on a machloket, on a machloket that you don't even know why they did it, it wasn't even you or your parents. Not your grandparents. And you're not even going to speak to each other. You don't know. But that's the Yetzer Hara. To make machloket. To make a machloket out of a machloket. You don't even know why you did it. And they didn't even remember. And what was the story really? After 7 years, when they made up, they said, but why were you so upset at us that day? Something happened, you blew up. Say, yeah, this is what happened. He said, do you know what happened? Very, very simple. We borrowed a bottle of milk the day before. So I went to the store and I bought 3 bottles of milk. One of them, I returned to the neighbor that I borrowed it from him, one neighbor. The other one, right, in the nighttime, another neighbor asked us for a bottle of milk and we lent them a bottle of milk. The third one was already consumed by my family during the nighttime and in the morning. So when you came to ask us for milk, we had no milk. The guy went and he made a calculation. You just bought last night 3 bottles of milk. You have some milk. He didn't realize that 1 bottle he already returned because he borrowed that bottle. The second bottle he lent out. So he only had 1 bottle left. He uses 1 bottle in a day. So therefore, there was nothing left. Between the nighttime and the morning, there was nothing left. So if he would have been dal lechazechut, he would have been able to speak to his neighbor for 7 years. But because the person didn't want to judge favorably, and automatically it's always to look negative, and how could this guy do this, and what's going on? All of a sudden, you start a fight and you start a fire for 7 years. Based on what? Nonsense. Nothing. There was nothing there. The Tuvchaya Biu, Rav Zilberstein comes and he says that more than 95% of cases of fights, it was such a small action that if we would have only been milamed zechut and only would have just judged a little bit favorably, it would have been completely different. So they didn't have the kavanah, the intention to go and do something negative, to go into. It was just something that happened. Sometimes it's a nature. Sometimes people don't realize. I just had it in the kollel the other day. Somebody came, right, and they're learning with a Mishnah Brura. Yeah, it was a certain type of a Mishnah Brura that had certain explanations. Somebody else comes, right? He's in the middle of learning it. He takes the book and he starts turning it and starts looking for something. And the guy's like, Iwa, like I'm learning. Like, you just like, snatch the book away. Like, what's going on here? The guy didn't really pay attention much. He did it and he gave it back. Midot or not midot, you're right. It's not good midot. You don't come, you don't snatch things away from people. You ask whatever you want. But you know what the real story was? It was this guy's personal book. But nobody knew that. There was another book, right, that belonged to the Bet Knesset, which is the exact same one that they were going around. So all the time they were sharing the same book. So if I needed to know a certain explanation, I would use it. So it wasn't really your book. You're using it now, yes, but it's not yours personal book. It belongs to the synagogue. So what happened? The guy, the Avrech, he took it to heart. He took it that, what is this? What's going on? So you're right. Again, one more time. The derech eretz, there was no derech eretz. You don't snatch away. But there was something to be done l'chav zechut there. The done l'chav zechut was, I'm not going to come and take your property, right, and just do whatever I want with it. If it's yours, it's yours. For sure, I have to ask you permission. But the guy justified himself. He said, listen, it belongs to the synagogue, right? This and that. I'm going to open up the book. I'm going to use it. Fine, so 1 minute you'll wait. You're going to do chesed as well. What's the big deal? If he knew it was his, he would have acted differently. But now he didn't know that. And the other guy, that was the bachur that, he got all upset. He wouldn't have gotten so upset if he would have realized that as well. So it all depends in the eye of the beholder of what's actually coming in front of us. And that's why it says, Havedanet kol ha'adam lechav zechut. What is kol ha'adam? It says, you know what kol ha'adam is? Kol ha'adam means is that when you're going to judge someone, put yourself in their shoes. In their shoes means how they were brought up, how they were born, what happened to them today. Maybe something happened. Somebody that, and then I just found out that they had a terrible day. Something terrible happened. So now all of a sudden you feel bad for the person. Before you were judging them, you were saying derogatory things about them. He came in, he had a face at Tisha B'Av. If that would have happened to us, we would have had a face that we wouldn't have even come. They came. They did show their face and they tried to work on themselves, but it didn't actually work the most successful way. But if we would put ourselves in their shoes, that would have been completely different. There's only one problem. We can't put ourselves in their shoes because nobody was brought up with the same way. Nobody was made the same form. Nobody passed through the same day. It's true. It's not good to show and everything that you always should be happy. But at the end of the day, look what's going on. If you were in that situation, you would also have acted the same way. So why can we judge them favorably? And that's Vavedan et kol ha'adam. Kol ha'adam means look at the entire picture, not just a little action. He came in and he didn't say good morning. Ooh. Why? His mind was so off. He was so depressed. He was bad. It was marash chorab, they say in Hebrew. It's mamash terrible. But why don't we just open up our eyes and say 1 second, what's going on? And we should understand also that there's even halachot in everything that we're doing. What does that mean there's halachot? There's halachot that we're supposed to judge favorably. At tzaddik, you always have to judge him favorably. Even when you see that tzaddik doing something bad, you have to judge him favorably. A rasha, it's the exact opposite. You always have to judge him negatively. Because he's a rasha, he's known to be a rasha. The benoni, which is a middleman, the halvai, we should be benonim. So here we have a mitzvah in the Torah to judge favorably. Right? And that's even if it's going to be the word, we're not sure. He did an action. I could interpret it in 2 different ways. Positively, negatively. No, but I have to do it. So if we're going to always come, right, and we don't know what it is, right, we don't have the action, so that's going to be the 4th case, there's still a midat chasidut to come and to judge them favorably. Right? And if we're going to come and we're going to judge negatively, we annul the mitzvah doraita. We annul the mitzvah from the Torah. Because we have a mitzvah from the Torah to judge favorably. And if we did not judge favorably, we annul the mitzvah from the Torah. More than that, this mitzvah applies all the time. Right? Every single moment, we always have this mitzvah. And therefore, the mitzvah is not just as a one-off. A mitzvah applies whether to men, whether to women, whether to every single scenario. That is a mitzvah. Now, what happens by choshed bikshani? Right? We have to also flip the coin. What happens if I'm always going to judge negatively? So the Gemara actually says, right, that how many times have we seen that when we come and we actually judge negatively, what happens is that we get punished for it. We're obligated to give them a beracha, a blessing. That we learned from Eli. Eli, he interpreted wrong that Hannah was shikora, was drunk instead of keshera, because she was crying from her heart instead of screaming out. So what happened? So what happened was that all of a sudden now he went and he gave her beracha. And that beracha was actually fulfilled. Because anybody that's choshed biksherim, you have to actually come and you have to give them a blessing. Loke bigufo. What does it mean loke bigufo? Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he says, the Bnei Yisrael are not going to believe me if I'm going to tell them that you're going to take them out of Egypt. What happened? He immediately had sarat. He had leprosy. You spoke lashon hara? How do you know they're not going to believe you? Maybe they are going to believe you. You're right. They're going through subjugation, through everything that you want, but you have to do that. What happened with Eliyahu Navi? Eliyahu Navi said, Bnei Yisrael are not keeping the brit, the treaty between us and Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, they're not keeping the brit. Every single brit milah, you have to be there to testify that they are doing the brit. They are keeping that peace treaty between us. The majority of people think that Eliyahu Navi comes to the brit because it's something good. It was actually a punishment. It was a punishment because he said that we're not doing the brit milah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're just going to see they're not doing the brit. You're going to see it now. It's zechut now, because now for us it's good. Every brit milah we have Eliyahu Navi coming. But for him, it was something on the negative side, because he said that what? We're not going to keep the brit? And that's why they learned. That was the Gemara Berachot to do with, right, the Eli and Chana Kohen. Okay, Eli Kohen and Chana. But now also it's Lalacha also, right? Right? You're obligated to come and to actually understand that you have to actually try to appease them. There was a famous story with the Rashash. The Rashash is not the Rashash Sfaradi, Rabbi Shalom Sharabi, was the Rashash Ashkenazi. The Rashash Ashkenazi, there was a famous story with him. That what happened is that he lent out money to someone. And when he lent out money to the person one day came back and he paid him back, but he didn't know about it. So what happened is that after a little while, the Rashash, it comes a time for payment. The Rashash tells him, pay up. So what are you talking about? I already paid you. When did you pay me? I gave it to you. No, you didn't give it to me, this and that. Went back and forth. It went even to a bit, even think about it. The Rashash, the biggest of the rabbis, who's going to win in the Bedid? The guy, he felt so bad. He started losing his customers. Nobody wanted to buy anything from him. I think he was a butcher, right? No, it was terrible. Terrible situation. He lost everything. What happened was, one day the Rashash comes back, goes to the Bet HaMidrash where he always goes. He opens up the Gemara, and there's money. He's looking. He counts the money. It's the exact same amount of money that the guy owes him. The exact same amount. He looks at the Gemara, and he realized, that there was the last sugya that I learned last week when he told me that he paid me. So he comes to the guy, and he tells him, by the way, you told me that you paid me. Where, when? Tell me a little bit. He said, no, I was in Bet HaMidrash. Okay, I'm always in Bet HaMidrash. What was I doing? Learning Gemara. Which Gemara? He told you were learning the Gemara. What did I do with the money? He says, you put it down, or I put it down, right? And that's it. I put it down in front of you on the Gemara. The Rashash didn't even realize that he was paid. He was so engrossed in his learning, he didn't realize that the guy put the money down in the Gemara. The Rashash got up, closed the Gemara, he didn't realize. The money was left in the Gemara. He started crying to him. He told him, please forgive me. But he started saying, but how am I going to fix it? Now I'm going to come and I'm going to tell everybody that you did pay me. Right? What's everyone going to say? The rabbi was appeased and now he's trying to make it. The rabbi was mukhel. The rabbi's a tzaddik. So he's mukhel. For sure the guy didn't pay. He's a thief. He's a this, he's a that. And what? The rabbi, and then and that's it. You understand? So he went and he said, I've got an idea. He says, do you have a child So yeah, I think it was the son of the Rashash or the daughter, I don't remember which one. They got their children married between them. That's how he was able to fix up the entire story. But it was to try to teach us an important lesson. The lesson that it was trying to teach us is that this entire concept, yeah, is that you have to realize not to judge negatively. And look how many times if you're going to come and you're going to say something, it can actually change everything. Because now the way that you look at them, it all of a sudden changes the entire perspective on how you look at the people. And it's negative. You have to be on the positive. Rabbi Akiva, when he was teaching us that you have to judge your friend favorably and you have to love your friend like yourself, he was teaching you. Just like you love yourself and you would always look at yourself always in a positive light, so do the same thing for your friend. Which means that everything's always going to be positive, not in the negative light. And that's our mission throughout the entire Sefirat HaOmer. Dal lechav zechut, betzedek tishpot tamitecha. I just heard yesterday a beautiful thing. Betzedek tishpot tamitecha, right, is bet taf ein, tavo alav beracha. If you're going to judge your friend favorably, you always have beracha on you. Right? You always get berachot. Right? But that's what we're supposed to be doing. A person should always judge favorably. We were never in that position. We should never be in that position. So therefore, just change our perspective. Learn how to look positive, and it will change in everything that we do in life as well. Zat Hashem, Shabbat Shalom. Kadosh, I just wanted to add a beautiful message from Rav Zilberstein. He actually wanted to train his children and everyone in the family to do this concept of Dan Lechav Zechut. Every single Shabbat, he would bring them a story. And in the story, it would look like terrible things, right? Something like, there was once a story of a guy that he starts honking at a bus. And the bus, right, was saying, what does this guy want? We're on the highway. And the guy is honking and honking. Yeah, and the guy keeps on wanting me to pull over. What am I going to do? Yeah, and finally the guy comes and he pulls in front of the bus. The bus has no option. He's either going to run into him or he's going to stop. So he stops suddenly, completely stops. The guy runs out of the car and starts banging on the windows of the bus. Open up the door. The guy doesn't understand what's going on. Like this guy, he thinks that something's... He opens up the door and the guy runs all the way to the back of the bus. He grabs the guy and he throws him on the floor. Imagine what you would think at that moment. Imagine what you think. Throws him on the floor and he goes on top. Everyone's going to, what's going on? What happened? The guy in the car was a doctor. He was able to see through the back of the bus that the guy in the last seat was having a heart attack on the moment. He went and he saved the guy's life by throwing him on the floor and doing something right away. He saved the guy's life. But now when you're looking at everything, you're saying, what's going on here? The guy's stopping a bus, banging on the door, running to the back, throwing the guy on the floor, jumping on top. Nobody understands what's going on, but he's saving the guy's life. So therefore, what he used to try to train everyone was, everyone would come. They would say a story, and the mission of every single person was trying to find the lechav zechut, why that was being done. I think it's a beautiful message to take home as well.